Welcome into the conversation. It's Adrienne Lawrence, your host. And this time I am joined by an attorney who also happens to be a candidate for Maine's 2nd Congressional District. That's Tiffany Bond. Thanks so much for joining us, Tiffany.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, all right. So gosh, midterm elections are just around the corner. There is so much going on. And I know you have been in this fight and you've been steadily pushing forward. Where are you right now in terms of the election?
Well, it's certainly been a journey and an adventure. We are in a unique spot in Maine because we have ranked choice voting. So that means there's no functional polling on our race at all.
Well, that's always helpful, especially when, sometimes it can be helpful, but I guess it makes you probably even more driven to get in there and to ensure that people hear your name, they know what you stand for. And so if you were talking to some of those potential or constituents out there, what would you say to them?
Well, I'm in a race that's a little quirky. So we have a Republican running, and he is he's sort of like the personification of nonsense. He's everything that we have come to love about what is happening with the Republican Party. And we have a Democrat that's a little bit nonsense adjacent himself. And I'm the boring one. I'm boring, I'm reasonable, I'm competent. I work with federal law all day long, and I just want to go write some. So it's been a journey with me talking about law, and then the men showing up in lobster gear or shotgunning beers. It's a surreal experience for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I'm sure you're just like, well, what do I do with this? That's just not. I think you were right when you said nonsense and nonsense adjacent, because that sure seems to be what it sounds like. And I know you just talked kind of about the law and the fact that you talk about it on a daily basis as an attorney. And you've been quoted as saying that you like cost-effective kind law. What do you mean by that?
So I work with a lot of federal law. I'm a family law attorney, and a lot of the things that you see cross my desk. So the social services network crosses our desk. Food stamps, it's actually SNAP, but it's commonly known as food stamps, taxes, retirement, student loan issues, disability issues, issues with Veterans Affairs, all of it comes across a family law attorney's desk. And I see a lot of federal spending that goes into areas that don't provide a good return on investment. For example, we spend an awful lot of money on military that doesn't necessarily generate anything back into our economy, but we shortchange people on programs like making sure that SNAP or the food stamps benefit is tied to inflation a little bit better. Same thing with Social Security benefits. They aren't tied to inflation well. And those programs have a really good return on investment. They generate quite a bit into our economy for each dollar spent.
And so, as it concerns really reaching and having things resonate with the individuals there in the 2nd Congressional District in Maine, what do you think has been the toughest to get them to see the value in bringing someone who's looking for the return on investment when it comes to public policies and any kind of work that you do to advance them?
Honestly, the biggest thing that I butt up against is there is not a lot of coverage of independent candidates, and there is not a lot of coverage of women specifically, especially for independents. I find that almost everybody that I run into is pretty easy to get on board with the campaign. I have a really high conversion rate of folks I talk to. It's just that there aren't the opportunities in media. One thing that I do 2 virtual town halls per week. And one of the things we've talked about recently, this is not just Republicans, Democrats are also doing it. There is a real inclination to step out of the public debate. There is a lot of pressure to not debate at all. So in the race I'm in, there were 4 debates scheduled. And I showed up to the first one alone. The gentleman did join me for the second one, and then they refused to join me for the next 2. They got canceled. So there's a lot of pressure to not attend sort of the free events that are put on, and instead to just raise millions of dollars in fundraising and have curated commercials instead. And I don't think that's great for our democracy.
No, I don't think it's good either, especially when it's essentially chasing capitalism, as opposed to chasing we the people and ensuring that their voices are heard and their platforms and their positions as well. And so that's incredibly disheartening and disappointing. But when it comes to your position and ensuring others have the opportunity to understand it better, what do you think that people need to hear most?
Well, I think that I'm in a I wouldn't call it unique. I'm sure there's other people that have this an uncommon position where the competency and the qualifications are not a problem that I have. I think the biggest problem I have is chatting with people and actually getting around the money. So I've come up with something that I think you might like. Instead of fundraising, I do what I call main raising. So the race that I'm in has already had $25 million spent on it. There's more ads that can than you can imagine in this race. It means a very inexpensive media market. I ask people not to do that. Please don't give me money. Take the same amount of money that you would give me, and let's use a little bit of capitalism back on itself. Go shop at a small business or donate to a not-for-profit of either a shelter or for a heating oil fund or a food bank. And as you're doing that, say that I asked you to invest in the community. So Tiffany Bond asked me to shop at your small business or asked me to contribute to your food bank. And I apologize for that. I am a mom as well, so you may have heard a little background noise. So yeah, I asked people to take the same amount of money they would give me and instead invest it in our community. And it is an excellent way to make sure that the resources are going into the community. And instead of those things where we say, hey, we've wasted $1 million or $25 million, or in the case of Maine's Senate race in 2020, $100 million, we're actually putting that into our community and into our citizens.
That's a really novel approach to not only get your message out, but also to reinvest in the community that you want to represent. I would hope that that is something that will be very rewarding at the end of the day. I guess we're going to have to wait and see, but I will also definitely ask you, because I know this is your second run for the US House seat. What inspired you to run again?
My kid. And it's also really stressful for my job. It is really hard and painful to be helping people reconfigure their family and their life and have to tell them that I would really like to make sure that you are stable and healthy and happy and have a future, but I don't have the resources available to make that happen. And that is so heartbreaking that it is deeply motivational to try to change the system that we have available.
Absolutely. And it's a powerful thing to be in the position to hopefully effectuate that change. And I'm wondering also, from your first run for the US House seat, what are you doing differently?
When I started running for office, I'd never run before I ran in 2018. I'd never run for any office or any election. I only had maybe a dozen, slightly over a dozen followers on social media. I now have over 40,000. If you're on Twitter, come find me. I'm at Tiffany Bond. I started out with myself. I now have over 200 volunteers. So we have actually a pretty big campaign, given that we've spent less than $5,000 so far. So about 200 volunteers. We have folks sending out postcards, 5 or 10 at a time, all over the country. We've got phone calls, we've got door knockings, we have 2 town halls a week that are virtual. I'm on just about any podcast I can get on. I have anywhere between 2 and 10 campaign events a week. Plus, I'm a mom who runs a business, so we've been having some pretty busy weeks lately. But it's a lot more organized and a lot more support than I had my first run. And I think the best part of it is, on top of investing in communities, we've sort of built one, and that's really what campaigns should be. I hope that whether I win or lose, that more people adopt like the main raising type of philosophy, and we look forward to election season instead of election season being the ads and the backbiting and not being productive in democracy. That it just becomes, hey, who are we going to help this year, and how are we going to make our country better?
Yes, I really, really like to hear that. I like to hear that you have that mindset and also that drive, and that you're also taking advantage of having the community members, individuals around you who support your position, your cause, also join you and be able to participate in uplifting your voice and your message. That's a very powerful thing. So I think you're definitely on the right path. And so now as we're starting to close in, I guess, what's on your radar?
Well, it's I'm really looking forward to post campaign. I'm looking forward to not having an alarm clock on a Saturday. But for the last 2 weeks, I've got just jam packed with a ton of events, and I'm so excited. I have events starting at 2 a.m. on Saturday, but I have events every night this weekend or this week, all through the next weekend, all the way through Election Day. Election Day, I actually get to take it a little slow. We're not having a campaign party because it's very likely that this case or that this race will go to ranked choice runoffs. So we probably won't have an election result on Tuesday night. I've had several of the news sources call me and be like, "Where's your campaign going to be?" And I'm like, making meatloaf and tucking my kids in. That's what I do on weeknights.
Wow. Well, we send you all the best as you are in this final stretch. And so for people who want to follow you and support you, where can they find you on social media?
Sure, I'm easiest to find on Twitter. I'm at Tiffany Bond. I'm also on Instagram. If you sort of like a break from politics, there's not as much there. That's at Tiffany L Bond. I have Facebook. It is at Bond the number 4 dot or Bond the number 4 ME, and then the website is Bond the number 4 .me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Tiffany Bond, an attorney who is also a candidate for Maine's 2nd Congressional District.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hoorah, more conversation with Adrienne Lawrence. And this time I have the Democratic congressional candidate for North Carolina's House District 74. That's Carla Catalande. Thanks so much for joining us, Carla.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. I am Carla Catalande, and I'm running for North Carolina House District 74.
Yes, and we are very excited to have you. And I know that you are big when it comes to environmentalism and health. Can you talk about how that is something that you plan to incorporate in your leadership should you take office?
Yes, I am very proud of my background. I went to Western Carolina University, got my degree in environmental health, and that really kickstarted my public health journey. I became a public health worker, and we need a voice at the state level who understands the impact of our environment and how that will work with how the health of the environment directly impacts human health. Without clean water, we will not survive. Without clean air, we will not survive. And that includes all of the nitty-gritty details, like even our sewage.
Absolutely. And it seems to be something that is often lost upon a lot of leaders, particularly when maybe they have big businesses in their pockets who are, looking to necessarily exploit our environment for their own capital gains. And so when it comes to getting this message out and having people see the value in taking a more environmentalist approach and something that really acknowledges, prepares for, and hopefully if some point addressing climate change, how has that been so far?
I would say in North Carolina's history, we have made some pretty extraordinary things. Actually, North Carolina sued the Tennessee Valley Authority for polluting air over the Blue Ridge Mountains that came over here. But since that time, I see more and more protections for corporate powers. And in the end, that's not really benefiting the people of North Carolina.
No, it doesn't benefit anyone. And all it does is largely put money more in the pockets of powerful people as opposed to serving the everyday people. And in terms of everyday people, can you talk more about your ties to the area there in North Carolina?
Yes. So I grew up here in the district that I am now running to represent. I love her. I had my first car accident here. I went to high school and middle school here, and now I'm raising my own family here. So I grew up here, and talking to the folks when I'm knocking on doors, I'm running into my former classmates or their parents even. So it's really nice to see them again and also join together now in this moment in time. So I'm looking forward to winning and representing the folks that I grew up with, that watched me grow up.
That's really, really cool to be able to canvas your local neighborhood and see people that you grew up with, and they really watched you kind of come into your own. And as it concerns kind of your evolutionary process, what made you want to go ahead and run for office as a state representative?
Well, I became a mother, and I became a mother 2016 February, and that is when I found out that Donald Trump was the Republican presidential nominee, and I felt like I have literally just brought a child into this world, and now what? And I felt the whole weight of the whole country, what could happen, and all of my fears, they did come true, right? We saw what happened, especially with January 6th and everything. And if good people sit down and just don't do anything, if we don't, regular working class people don't stand up and say, we do not want this, we want better for our families, then we lose. But it just takes one, I suppose it is brave and courageous to put yourself out there, but I'm doing it because I am more concerned about not just my child's future, but also my great grandchildren's great grandchildren. What are they going to look back and say about their grandma Carla? They're going to say, we don't know her, or I'm glad that she stood up.
Absolutely. I know it has rocked a lot of people in terms of seeing where our society is going, but making the effort and investing the time to run for office, to provide your leadership skills and your direction, and to ensure that your community is moving in the right direction and making the right investments, that is a very admirable thing. And so I'm very glad to know that you are running for North Carolina's House District 74. And as it concerns that district, give us a little intel on it. Has it generally been blue, or is it red? What do things look like?
It is purple. And if they would let us vote and our maps got a little bit more fair, then I actually very much believe that our community would be very blue and even be considered progressive. Which I know is shocking for the South. Yeah.
Absolutely. Seems to be so, but I know we know a lot of gerrymandering has diluted a lot of the realities in terms of the constituents and what the people want. And so as it concerns the current race right now, do you have any idea where you stand?
Well, I believe I'm doing pretty good. We are out there, we are knocking doors. I believe it's been over 10,000 doors in the primary. That was our primary. During the primary, we stayed on the doors. Even on election day, we knocked on people's doors and asked them to come out and vote. We stayed out there. I was out there from the polls opening to the polls closing, and I got sunburnt, but it was worth it because I saw people come and be excited to vote, actually. And now I'm doing the same, boots on the ground. I'm a working class person. So hard work I'm not a stranger to it.
All right. Well, in District 74, can you tell me, what do you think the constituents, what issues are really drivers for them?
What folks are telling me that they really want is, most importantly, expanding healthcare. So North Carolina does not have expanded healthcare right now. And that is really hard for a lot of working families, and in particular folks that, I'll give you an example. And during the primary, a gentleman came to go vote. He is going through chemo, and he had to find time in his calendar to go vote and then go back to work. And he was a gas station clerk. And so people are really hurting, especially with big diseases like cancer. It's not fair that we treat our own people so poorly, and I know we can do better. Another thing that's really important is abortion access. I just saw some statistics, and it seems that mostly at the moment, Democratic women are voting more. We have the lead. Let's keep it.
That would definitely be something that I would want to maintain without a doubt, because it's incredibly important that we maintain our sense of bodily autonomy as women in the United States. And if you were to be elected, what do you think you would want to accomplish first in your first year?
I would want to cast the vote that says yes to expanding healthcare, because that's what folks are telling me is the most important to them, because it could immediately help them right now and keep families from going into debt and basically ruining their lives. And I will also vote to protect abortion and codify it in our state constitution. And that is really important in North Carolina because we are the last state in the South at the moment. And as goes the South, so does the country.
Okay, and so when you say the last state in the South, is it the last state in terms of abortion?
Yes, and in terms of abortion access, North Carolina at the moment is the only one that allows abortion access, and doctors are even sending their patients from Tennessee across the state border to get an abortion, life-saving abortions. Yeah.
Wow, it sounds like North Carolina legislature may have to do something to bolster the social services and other opportunities, because again, if you do have people who do cross the lines or cross borders, then you're going to see an influx that you're going to need to be able to support and be ready for. And so that's something that you need people in office who see that and have the vision for it. And so hopefully you will be among them. And I'm guessing your election will be coming up very soon. Is that right?
Yes. So early voting has started. I've been at the polls today, poll grading, and November 8th, when the polls close, that's when we find out if this proof of concept and this progressive grassroots campaign, if it's going to work. But I'm pretty hopeful.
It must be pretty exciting as well. Oh, wow. In these final moments on your way, in terms of closing out your campaign, what's been on the forefront of your mind?
Well, I have a lot. I'm going to be honest with you. It's been running for office has been wonderful and also challenging. Both my husband and I are working, because I'm still working through all of this. Running for office, what's on my mind is often how can we make running for office more accessible to working class people? As it is probably 80 hours a week. It's a lot of work. And then working. And how are we going to help people? Because I have learned through this process that if we truly want the things that we say we want, we do need more working class people that see it from the weeds and know exactly how to where the cracks are, so that people stop falling through them. But it also makes me hopeful for the future, because so many people are showing up right here in my community. And then also enjoy converting voters from one side to the other.
Yes, I would imagine that's a very rewarding feeling and experience. And so as you continue to fight to get the vote and to get the North Carolina House District 74 spot, where can people find you on social media and online to support your campaign and to follow you?
On Twitter, it is @ElectCarla. On Instagram, it is @ElectCarla. And on Facebook, it's ElectCarla. So those are my social media channels. And I was able to, I really flew under the radar and grabbed them all up, right? So the website's also electcarla.com. And what we would definitely appreciate right now is donations. This is a grassroots campaign. Every single donation has been from regular working class folks. And it all goes to canvassers. It goes to calling people. So we're putting that money to good use.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. That's Democratic congressional candidate for North Carolina House District 74, Carla Catalande.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like. tyt.com/join and enjoy this.
You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey. Hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Jank. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
This is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. I'll refer to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Woo! It's up!
Welcome one and all to The Young Turks with me, John Derola, and Brett Ehrlich.
You know what? John and I were just gabbing like a bunch of old friends, and he looked up and the show was starting. That's exactly how well we get along, you and I, John.
Yeah, it's like there's not like an actual audience here, obviously. You have to sort of remind yourself that theoretically people are watching you.
Yep.
But anyway, we're here. It's admittedly a bit of a weird show. When was the last time we did an hour together, in person together?
The only reason I'm here, John, is because I thought it would bring you joy.
I'm feeling pretty good, actually.
Pretty good?
I mean, let's not go crazy, but okay.
I drove like an hour.
Thank you. Hey, it takes me a while to get here too. Anyway, I'm very glad to be here, and I'm even happier that you are here. Jokes aside, Adrienne Lawrence is gonna be leading the second hour, which is very exciting as well. And we do have a lot to talk about in this hour. Not only recapping the Oz-Fetterman debate last night, which I know you watched and just thought was great for all parties concerned. We're gonna be talking about Proud Boys and drug price hikes, and a little bit of breaking news, which we're gonna turn to in just a second. But if you're joining us now, please hit the like button. Let people know that the stream is live. And you wanna do this thing?
Yes. I was gonna say Anna's out sick today. She'll be back soon.
Okay, yes, she is. Hopefully she'll be back soon. Hopefully she's feeling better. But with that, the news goes on, and so must we. Herschel Walker is facing an accusation that he pressured a woman to have an abortion and paid for it. Don't check the date on this video. This is live. This is another woman who is saying that now. She's being identified only as Jane Doe right now, being represented by obviously famed attorney Gloria Allred. And we have a number of different bits of audio of the woman talking about the experience that she had with Herschel Walker back in 1993. Here's the first bit.
Herschel Walker says he is against women having abortions, but he pressured me to have one.
She's doing a pretty good job of holding herself together as she begins to tell her story. But the actual experience, based on what she has to tell us, was pretty rough. Here's her describing it.
I went to a clinic in Dallas, but I simply couldn't go through with it. I left the clinic in tears. When I told Herschel what had happened, he was upset and said that he was going to go back with me to the clinic the next day for me to have the abortion. He then drove me to the clinic the following day and waited for hours in the parking lot until I came out. He then drove me to get medications and supplies as prescribed, and then drove me home. I was devastated because I felt that I had been pressured into having an abortion. After the abortion, I felt that Herschel began distancing himself from me. I fled Dallas within days after the abortion and did not go back to even visit for the next 15 years. Because I was so traumatized by what Herschel had put me through.
Now, of course, at this point, these are allegations. It's impossible for us to say exactly what happened in their relationship. But she is saying the reason she is now coming out with her story is because she saw Walker denying the first set of allegations related to an abortion. And she says, particularly, I saw him state that the woman's claims were not true because he never signed any cards using the letter H. I knew that was not true because he had often signed letters to me using H. And so she apparently knew that the woman's story was likely true in that case, but says she wants to stay anonymous, fearing reprisals. We'll talk a little bit about the anonymity, but look, there was sort of a concern floating around that considering everything else about this campaign, it seemed unlikely that the first woman would be the only woman. We can't say for sure that this woman, again, just allegations, will be the only other woman, but it is now two.
I'm at a decision point right now where I have to decide whether I'm going to take this with the seriousness it deserves, or if I'm going to joke about it, because it's so absurd. The idea that anyone in America has not caught on to the fact that Republican politicians say that they're advocating for stuff that their constituents want while living up to that example, that is a ridiculous thing to think. Herschel Walker is such a walking parody of Republican hypocrisy, where they, at this point, you thought Roy Moore was the massive extent that they would go to. But they have Herschel Walker now, who can't even hold down a day job like Roy Moore. He goes out and he doesn't put it, he has no excuse for not putting a sentence together. And not only that, but he has obviously, according to what I've seen and the conclusion I personally myself have drawn, he has driven women to go get abortions and then later turned around and said, I am going to outlaw abortions altogether. Well, I say put your money where your mouth is, walk the walker, and volunteer to go to jail, because that is what your constituents want. They see it as murder. You then, by their definition, are a murderer. You should be at the mercy of the people in your state, according to what your plan is for the future of America. And you should go to jail and potentially be put to death because you have committed murder multiple times. By your people's definition, Herschel Walker, you're a serial killer.
Yep. Well, by his people's definition, and also by the definition that he at least wants his base to believe that he holds. Remember, he doesn't believe that there should be any exceptions. Now, I know that like people are throwing that around against literally every candidate, and I get it. Some of the candidates who say they support exceptions would vote in favor of bills that didn't have exceptions, but he doesn't support any exceptions. Like that is what he says. And there's no exception for incest, no exception for rape, obviously no exception for I'm a football player, I don't really feel like it. I think that probably wouldn't be one of the exceptions as well. And this isn't like, you're judging him based on what he says, what his side says. We don't believe that he necessarily did anything wrong. I mean, maybe ethically, based on what she's saying, it appears to have gone just beyond him expressing an interest in not having a child. He seems to have been very much pressuring her. That maybe goes beyond what most people would be comfortable with. But if he was just honest about all of this and would give leeway to other people that he gave to himself, then we wouldn't have any problem with this. This wouldn't be a scandal for him, and we could instead focus on the 100 other things that make him wholly unqualified for this position. But this is the life that he says, like there's the life he says you should lead, and then there's the life that he has actually led, and he can talk about being bathed in the blood of Jesus Christ. I feel like it's not up to you at the end of the day whether you've redeemed yourself. I don't think that's how Christianity is supposed to work, that you just say you're good now.
It's so bad. I mean, the golden rule to make it particularly Jesus-y is treat others the way you would want to be treated. Come to our side, we do that. We got cookies. Like you come over, you get to be just a garden variety crappy dude where you knock a girl up, you say you love her, you say, I think for both of us, I think I'll stay with you, but we gotta get an abortion. Then you pay for her abortion and then you leave her. You get to be precisely that horrible. Under the law, you're fine. Because we know that it's not just a standard for me and a different standard for everyone else. Worse, what Herschel Walker's doing is decidedly elitist and anti-populist. He has put himself, because he can run good and is pals with Donald Trump, now he is in the inner circle of people who are allowed to do it. And what's frustrating is that, but not only that, but the people who are willing to give him a pass so that they can make other people responsible for taking the same actions that their leader that they want to vote for has taken.
Yeah, and along the way, you're totally right about being so elitist. We can't say to what extent it's honestly elitist or he's completely lying about this just because he wants to be in the inner circle. To me, it doesn't really matter which it is. I would think that if you were a devoted Christian, you'd care about the difference between those two things. I have no idea if he actually thinks that abortion is wrong now. Maybe he changed his mind after the multiple abortions he pressured women to have. I don't know, maybe he was hit in the head enough times that eventually the switch flipped for that. I don't know. But I do know he's a massive hypocrite. Even if it turned out somehow that this woman was lying, and I'm going to guess that Gloria Allred probably looked into it a little bit. They have bits of evidence, by the way. You can see, we're not gonna show you the videos for literally everything, but they have voicemails supposedly from Herschel Walker. You can see a shot of Gloria Allred playing that, and it certainly sounds like him. They have a photo of Herschel Walker in a bed in Jane Doe's hotel room, which again, by itself doesn't necessarily prove that he pressured her to have an abortion. This could have been taken from any number of different women he probably doesn't remember, but they do appear to, as with the first woman, have some documentation. That said, why don't we turn now to the response? Only seems fair. So we're gonna jump ahead actually to video 4. Whenever you're ready, let's go to that.
I'm gonna just say right now, guys, I'm done with this foolishness. I've already told people this is a lie, and I'm not gonna entertain and continue to carry a lie along. And I also want to let you know I didn't kill JFK either. And right now they sent him one out. He got crushed at that debate. And now the Democrats are doing say whatever they can to win this seat. But I want them to know they don't know Herschel Walker. They don't know that I'm from Wrightsville, Georgia, and I'm gonna win this seat.
Right there, Herschel Walker has the confidence of a man who doesn't necessarily know much, but he knows who he's trying to appeal to. And he knows how little they actually care about the things they purport to care the most about. This is now 2 women that say that he pressured them to have an abortion, which in their eyes is murder. They didn't care about the first. They didn't care about the documentation, the check and the letter and all of that. The fact that this Jane Doe is anonymous makes it very easy for them to brush away the entire thing. But I got news for you, I'll spoil the second season. Were she to reveal herself and were she to have a video that she shot on mini DV of their whole trip to the abortion clinic, if he were to have sat in the viewing gallery for it, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't care. That's why he didn't have to really defend himself. He called it foolishness, I think he said. He didn't even pronounce the word right. He brushed it aside, it's condescending. He's gonna win, he's Herschel Walker, that's it. Why would you say more when no one who's gonna be voting for you demands it?
It's so ridiculous. Speaking of the viewing gallery, like, where are they doing that statement? Where were they shooting that? You know what they do? This is even bigger of an insult than him going up there and saying like, they're not gonna send me to jail for being a murderer. He's also doing it in front of a freeway. Where are you? You're doing it intentionally so you have background noise so that people won't be able to use that video. Where even are you? Herschel Walker for Senate is at the bottom of an embankment. It's so ridiculous. And on the other end of it, you have a reverend, a well-respected guy who already is doing the job great, Raphael Warnock. And on the other end of it, you've got Herschel Walker who's sitting there like trying to run faster than the allegations can mount.
Yep.
And I hope to God that he cannot run faster than them.
Yeah, and maybe wait out, like, will more stuff come out? We've got what, 2 weeks at this point? Is there potentially time? Maybe in the same way that his condescending dismissal of the first allegations led to the second woman coming out. I don't know, maybe there's a third woman and a fourth woman that are watching him near that embankment, looking like his car flew off the road and they decided, we'll use this. Maybe they're paying attention, I don't know. But what I do know is that it won't really matter. I say too often, I oversimplify things and say that it doesn't matter to literally anyone. The polling that came out in the wake of the allegations, it does seem to have hurt him by like literally 1.5 points maybe. But I do have to imagine that whatever influence him being shown to be an utter absolute hypocrite on the topic that is most important to these people, it's gonna be mostly encapsulated in the first one. A second one or a third one, or I don't know, maybe he's a Trump or a Bill Cosby and there's 40 hanging out there. I don't think that each one is gonna give you a point. We're just at a point in American politics where just nobody cares. Like think about the conservatives that are looking at this. Maybe they even think, yeah, he is hypocritical on this, but they also think that Raphael Warnock is a tool of Satan. I mean, yes, they've been told that directly. Marjorie Greene says it frequently. So why would they support him? They've been convinced that the Democrats are literal Satanists. So Raphael Warnock is an obvious hypocritical failed Christian, but that probably seems better than the Satanist, I guess.
I don't think any additional people care. That's how I would qualify it.
That's depressing.
This is Georgia. This is Georgia where it took Donald Trump being the worst president in many, many years. Like the baseline for a Georgia Senate race should be like 60-40. And the fact that the Democrat is slightly ahead of a Republican means that a lot of people who do care have done one of two things. A, said, I'm gonna be with the man of God, in my opinion. The guy with the Reverend in front of his name, even if he's got a D. And this is Georgia. I voted for Democrats as recently as 2001, to before the realignment ended, and finally went to the Republican way. I think that's the main one. Or they've said, I'm just gonna stay home. I'm sitting this one out. Maybe. And the Alabamians did it with Roy Moore. They're just like, I'm gonna sit out. This guy's too much. But I would just say the marginal effect of this kind of thing, when it's been proven that he is just not worthy of being a senator, is not as huge, especially with the second one over the first one. And the 1 point is a big thing, because already Republican voters are used to looking at hypocritical leaders and saying, at least I know, and this is an art that the Democrats need to learn, is that even if you're a hypocrite on something, you're at least gonna deliver them the thing that they want from a policy perspective, which in this case is making abortion illegal.
Sure, yeah. De facto illegal for people who aren't as rich as Herschel Walker.
I forget who said it. They were like, I don't care what he said, I want the Senate. I don't know if that's
Dana Loesch.
Dana Loesch, yeah.
Yeah, she really doesn't care, which is definitely how religious values should work. You should be able to just dispense them like for short-term political gain, power gain. Jesus died for their sins. It is a martyrdom in the service of a larger agenda religion. So what's two Herschel Walker babies to them? I guess that's true. Really fast, we move on to the last video because we got to show you this. Imagine if the Republican Party of Georgia had just gone to a relatively big tire store and chosen the guy who owns it and ran him. They'd be up by like 8 points right now. They chose the most scandal-ridden person in the entire state, and it's still like that close. They could have chosen any dumb, regular Republican and walked away with this thing. What a bunch of morons. Let's focus briefly on one moron though, Lindsey Graham.
So I've seen this movie. I live 40 miles right over those hills there. I know Rabun County and I know Dillard really well. People here are not gonna tolerate it.
No.
There's gonna be a backlash in Georgia.
Yes, sir.
This is coming from LA. It's coming from an activist Democratic celebrity lawyer who went to the 2016 convention for Hillary Clinton. And people in Georgia are not this dumb.
Oh, just to clarify though, Gloria Allred wasn't pressured into having the abortion by Herschel Walker. It was the woman who very much did live there. But they don't care, they don't care. The fact he's saying like they're not gonna stand for it, there's gonna be a backlash. There should be, for the religious hypocrisy. There really should be, and they still are talking about this is coming from LA, this is coming from Hollywood. Put up your reality star president again. Honestly, they still love to pretend that they're not interested. Herschel Walker was chosen because he's a celebrity. I get that he doesn't live in LA, but you just chose the biggest celebrity that you could, a guy that you watched on TV for years and years.
John's microphone fell, everybody.
Okay, sorry about that.
He was making a really good point, and I think in
this
the service,
will not stand.
I think
there'll be a backlash.
I'd say fix your microphone and then we'll do it, and then we'll do it again. We'll run it back, John, because it's a really good point.
No, this is real, okay? We're not just gonna reread a script or something.
But you're right. The Republicans just choose stars, and for Lindsey Graham to say, "Oh, this came from LA," they thought, listen, Dr. Oz came from New Jersey, so you are importing people out of nowhere. You've got people because they're supposed to be celebrities. Now they've learned they just need TV stars and not NFL or whatever, stars from the University of Georgia or wherever he went.
Yeah, and look, that's a great point. Look, they know Dr. Oz from TV and Donald Trump from TV and Herschel Walker from TV. Tudor Dixon was a host on right-wing media.
Carrie Lake.
They're all I don't know where Carrie Lake is from.
TV host.
From
TV news host.
It's all from TV. That's all it is. And why wouldn't it be? They don't need Sarah Palin. That's a great point. Well, they don't need to know anything. They don't have to have experience. Experience, honestly, would be kind of an obstacle. Just believe whatever it is that we tell you right now you should believe. Be on the watch because it might change soon. But just believe whatever that is. Vote on the 2 or 3 things we actually care about. That's it.
Also, we're not as dumb as they think we are. It's like, listen, you're trying to convince them that you're tough, Lindsey Graham. If they're gonna believe that, they're gonna believe anything.
Yeah. You're being lied to by a guy who can't lie like convincingly, who can't put sentences together. I'm not saying the people of Georgia dumb. I'm saying that Herschel Walker thinks that they are. That's why he's not even bothering to really try to defend himself against these allegations. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take our first break of the hour. When we come back though, let's talk about the debate that happened last night in Pennsylvania. We'll be back with that in just a minute.
Ice cream.
Okay, but let's see what's going on out there in the members' comments, which are moving rapidly. Gabby says, wait, what's McBeardsley Sarcasmo the Drunkle Dragon doing on the main show?
That was so harsh.
That was all positive.
McBeardsley?
Yes. Yeah, you have a beard.
At least my wife calls me old gray beard.
I Am Sock says, Herschel Walker probably has a punch card for the abortion clinic. Ouch. Zombie Ice Dragon says, hi everyone, no Kasparola today, but I'm excited to see the amazing new team of Erlola, Iadalic, or maybe let's just go with the amazing John and Brett. Let's stick with that last one, I like it.
Braun. Brett and John is Braun.
Like yes. Okay. Moonshine Dragon.
Idarolic is a good
Idarolic works. We'll go with that. Moonshine Dragon, I'm not reading that out loud, but it's pretty funny. What was that?
Lick? It's not my fault that the end of my name is Lick.
You could have changed it.
Imagine what I put up with, Bart. My whole life. Brett or Lick my.
Well, that was also for the comment that John would not read.
Oh, there you
Keep
go.
that in the dark, guys.
Oh, got it.
Over on Twitch, Morphallen's been with us for 28 months and says, it brings me joy that Brett is there. Glad it brought someone joy. Brooke Marks has been with us for 32 months, says bring back Hot Mic Fridays.
That's crazy, Edwin just said that before the show.
I know, he talked to me about it earlier today too. So honestly, the only way that could happen is watch list would have to end early. Like there's no time, there's 5 minutes for this.
Just do the first 5 minutes of your show with the slate up.
With no screen, yeah, that'd be nice. Okay, let's see. Okay, Dave Schmidt gifted 2 subs, really? Thank you. Grandpa Dragon's been here for 29 months, says it's my 29-month anniversary and I see Brett. Oh well, it was a good run while it lasted. Boom, roasted. Anyway, Calm Like a Bomb says, guys, let's celebrate the real win of Brett being in the studio. Brooke gets the house to herself for a few hours.
So true.
Boom, roasted. Anyway, Yukon Man says, love John's retro hairstyle. What's retro about
John's growing his hair out. It happens once every 2 years. And then he gets to a point and he chickens out and he shaves it.
It's not chickening out when you're annoyed by something and you end it.
John needs to go.
Just ask Herschel Walker.
He needs to tell the barber,
boom, roasted.
Neaten it up while I'm growing it out.
I don't want to do anything and haircuts are expensive. We'll talk about it more on the next break.
times these days.
Welcome back, one and all, the Young Turks, John Irola, Brett Ehrlich. Anna is out, needing to recover for a day, a little bit sick, and Cenk isn't normally here, so that checks out.
So enough with the Caruso mentions.
Exactly. I am sure Cenk will talk about it when it comes back. I know, so we generally as hosts agree on a lot, but people do assume that we all talk about and agree on literally everything.
I don't live in Los Angeles, so.
Yeah. Exactly. Sometimes I find out things for the first time on Twitter too.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about something that happened yesterday, not on Twitter, but on the debate stage, starting with this.
And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush two words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down.
That was John Fetterman, and we did have the first and probably only debate that we'll have in that Pennsylvania Senate race. John Fetterman versus Dr. Oz. Fetterman, of course, is still in the early stages of recovery from a stroke that he had earlier this year. Still struggling with auditory processing, still struggling to speak to some extent. We're gonna get into the substance that was discussed, and there's some pretty fascinating stuff in there. But I know you were watching live as it was happening. A lot of people are saying that this in the end was a mistake, that Fetterman shouldn't have done the debate at all. I personally hate when a race doesn't have any debates. This is a slightly different circumstance than usual, but still, it is, I guess it's brave, it's transparent to do the debate knowing that you're experiencing such troubles.
There's so many ways to come at it, but when I watched it, I could only watch it for like 30 seconds at a time and then I had to turn it off. And I also had that instinct right off the bat to say they shouldn't have done this. Usually there's millions of reasons why they shouldn't have done the debate with Fetterman, not the least of which is his stroke and recovery process from it. If you're in the lead going into the debate, usually you lose a little of that lead anyway. Debates typically tighten them. That's why people in the lead try as hard as possible to have as few debates as possible. That's just one of the rules of politics. But he wanted to show that he wasn't afraid. And the disparity between their ability to perform on camera between Fetterman and Oz, it was bigger than normal because Oz has tons of advantages because the guy's a TV host anyway.
Yeah.
And I would say that, Herschel Walker, for example, has no excuse not to put a sentence together. And I think that having a debate set up the way it is, I think they probably should have changed the format because of that. They wouldn't ask Tammy Duckworth to run the hurdles, and they shouldn't ask John Fetterman to do a debate where he has to process information and speak back in that quick a turnaround.
Yeah.
And they did it. That's like asking to find out, who's the best at painting a house by having like a relay race. It's just not what it's gonna take when you're in the Senate. Even the filibuster, which is like the talking thing of the Senate, doesn't have talking anymore. So I don't think that it was necessary to have a debate, the least of which I don't think it had to happen in that format, especially because just the optics of it, I mean, I could talk about debate history, but the optics of having that reverse angle where you see the hosts of the debate with the teleprompter over their shoulders, every turn was a reminder, not that one person's ideas were better than the others, but a reminder that John Fetterman had a stroke and Oz didn't. And I think that is the most powerful point you can make about it. And I think people need to go out and make that point over and over and over again. And it's other thing that Dr. Oz never had to overcome an obstacle in his damn life. He hasn't. He get his job. I mean, the guy's what, a heart surgeon and he's a TV star. The only obstacle he ever had to overcome is relaxing his throat so he could swallow his dignity long enough to huck snake oil and kill dogs to find remedies.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's a natural human distaste to murdering dogs. That could be seen as an obstacle and he got past it. So let's give him at least credit for that. Yeah, look, having a debate where the format is give me literally 1 minute answers to things feels designed to hurt the guy who's gonna have a little bit of trouble expressing himself vocally. That seems weird, but remember, the debate rules were not up to just John Fetterman. The Oz team was involved too. The Oz team stopped the Fetterman team from having journalists in the room that would be able to see exactly how that whole system works. And that was designed, stopping that from happening was designed to make it so that Tucker Carlson could go live tonight and say that John Fetterman is a post-humanist cyborg creature or something. They're all saying that he was getting messages beamed to him and stuff. It's complete nonsense. But Oz gave an assist to that because he will always give an assist to fascist conspiracy theorists. That's the substance of the race. I apologize for focusing on that for a minute. I didn't think that his performance was quite as bad as you're saying that you literally can't watch it for more than 20 seconds. I do think that he had trouble, but I'm not gonna go into depth on it again. We talked about in the Damage Report this morning, but it is not inconceivable that at some point a person could run for office who cannot speak. What's gonna happen when that happens? We, as an advanced society, surrounded by technology and stuff, can't figure out any other way to have a discussion about people's positions. We have to formulate it in the exact same way, focused only on speech and quick turnarounds. Hear this, talk immediately, as if that's how politics works day to day.
Right, I think the other formats they could, if I'm Fetterman, I'm proposing, why don't we have it at a barbecue? I don't wanna wear a suit. I wanna wear a hoodie and shorts in the fall in Pennsylvania because I'm a Pennsylvania. We could have veggie, we could have crudité, we could have anything and start the negotiations there. Because that's another thing that Fetterman doesn't fit. He does not fit he doesn't fit the mold of your typical politician. Yeah, he's a Mayor of Braddock and he was, he's the lieutenant governor, fine. But this is a guy who you see him give official addresses in a hoodie because when he puts on a suit, it looks like a guy who always wears a hoodie wearing a suit. And you put Dr. Oz in a suit and he'll say, oh my God, I don't want to show off because I'm only gonna wear my $3,000 suit as opposed to my $15,000 suit. Yeah. And I'm gonna run, it's all a fake snake oil sales job when it's Dr. Oz. Yeah. And I just think that I was in Pennsylvania recently. I was in Pittsburgh and I was in an Uber. And there was a guy who drove the Uber and the dude was spouting conspiracy theories, saying that JFK was the only Democrat he would vote for, not because of any policy. Only policy he mentioned was JFK was a Catholic and he would never put up with abortion.
Sure.
But I mentioned universal health care and he was like, now there's something I can get behind. And if you focus on the policy that he's putting forward, and you keep it populist, and you talk about the working men and women of Pennsylvania, then Fetterman has been doing that, and he should win.
Yeah.
But these debates are so stupid.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous intersection of the weird lens that class is viewed through in America, with weird ideas of authenticity. That John Fetterman wearing a hoodie makes him disqualifying, but the billionaire Trump is a regular guy.
Yeah.
I don't understand how that's supposed to work. But anyway, I wanna make sure that we get to at least one of the main policy issues they talked about. Let's jump directly into Dr. Oz talking about abortion.
You say that you're pro-life, but you do support abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those 3 exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves.
Okay, so if you want local politicians being able to determine what happens to you and your body and the bodies of people around you, then Dr. Oz is probably your guy. But bear in mind, he's also a massive liar because he said multiple times there that he doesn't want the federal government involved in these sorts of topics. And yet when pressed on whether as a senator he would vote for Lindsey Graham's 15-week federal limitation on abortion, 3 times he was asked, 3 times he refused to answer. So to be clear, he doesn't want the federal government getting involved to guarantee your rights, but to whatever extent the federal government wants to limit them, he will be a yes vote for that.
Yeah, I think the way that he answered the question about Lindsey Graham was pretty straightforward. I mean, he kept explaining it over and over again, and it sounded like he said he would vote against it. But I don't believe him. Even if you think he answered it straightforward, he's answered a lot of things straightforward. Even in what he wanted to sound like a straightforward answer, he's saying, I don't want one kind of political figure in the room with you and your doctor, I want another. And I want the one that agrees with me, period. He wants the government to tell you what you can do with your body. He is another big government a-hole who doesn't believe anything he says and has been chosen because the people who are about to take him from being a TV star to a senator/TV star will be owed something.
Yeah.
And if you live in Pennsylvania and you care at all about rights, the Constitution, humanity, then you've got to vote against Dr. Oz.
Yeah. Really fast. We can't. If you keep getting asked the same question, you keep saying I've already answered that thoroughly, and you're being asked to say yes or no, and you won't, and you just say I've already been very clear, and the person's saying you haven't been clear. You can't just keep saying that you've been clear, because clearly you haven't been clear, would be my answer.
This opens up a discussion about
anyway,
how horrible the host of that debate was.
Sure, I agree with you that I don't believe him. I will say that. With that said, let's quickly breeze through this topic. It's an interesting one. We can jump into this video whenever you're ready.
I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, I don't support fracking at all. So how do you square the two?
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I do support fracking.
So that is one of the policy-based responses from John Fetterman that's getting the most attention. In the past, he has said that he's against it. He's never been incredibly clear. Bear in mind that earlier this year, a lot of progressives had an issue with his past on this very topic. But it's really where his inconsistency on a topic, combined with his difficulty in expressing himself on the debate stage, certainly is not doing him any favors. And I can't see who would come out of that answer liking him more as a candidate. Like if you're opposed to fracking, you're not gonna like that. And if you want to choose a candidate based on fracking, you're probably just gonna end up going along with Dr. Oz anyway, who's gonna let fossil fuel companies do whatever they want. So that seemed to me to be, aside from the overall issue that he might have communicating, that seemed to me to be the biggest misstep policy-wise.
This is one of those moments where you look at it and say, all right, I'm gonna check with the clarification later, because it sounded like his ability to speak was what got in the way. It seemed like every time he tried to go back and edit himself, he just moved on in the sentence and felt like he had already said it, but he was further along, and that's just how it presented itself. And I would say that, listen, Pennsylvania and energy production have a specific relationship. He's running to be a senator representing Pennsylvania. There are many benefits geopolitically to increasing your output of natural gas, even though it is horrible for the environment and the cleanliness of water in the region. Not only, and it also makes seismic issues happen in places that don't have faults. So that's one thing, so I would wait for that. But when it comes to that and the $15 an hour minimum wage, there is nothing that Dr. Oz is going to do to help actual people in any actual way. With the abortion, with the $15 an hour minimum wage, and with the fracking policy, all he is going to do, Dr. Oz will only benefit corporations. He wants freedom for corporations and he wants chains for people. And that's the only thing you need to remember every time you think about Dr. Oz, unless you remember him saying crudité instead of like broccoli and stuff.
I could go for a nice tray of broccoli and stuff. Anyway, okay, with that, why don't we get ready for the B block, okay? We're gonna fit in one more topic. I understand we're burning through the hour, but whenever we're ready, let's go to that first video of the B block.
If you want to get across the line, you got to go stronger in that one thing, because that was the one thing you a lot of complaints about. Look at Carrie. Carrie's winning with very little money. And if they say, how is your family? She says the election was rigged and stolen. You'll lose if you go soft. You're going to lose that base.
I'll
I'm not going soft.
I've never come in to do a rally where the person lost. Not once. I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
No, I'm just sure we're gonna beat this guy.
So that was Blake Masters doing a bizarrely performative phone call with Donald Trump for a Tucker Carlson documentary where he calls up Trump and instantly Donald Trump begins castigating him over not being sufficiently supportive of the big lie. Blake Masters, a guy who on the debate stage, and that's the venue they're talking about, said that the entire 2020 election was rigged by big tech or something. Got the greeting from Donald Trump. You're going soft. You're not talking about the big lie. Carrie Lake, it's her whole personality now. Now look, Blake Masters did say that he hadn't seen any evidence that votes were actually switched, which is, and this is weird because we're talking about Blake Masters, the truth. There isn't any evidence of that, and so he's actually saying something that's connected to reality. Now, I'm not gonna give him a ton of credit, because I think that were he to become a senator, he's going to do whatever he can in his power to advantage anti-democratic politicians like Donald Trump. But let's identify that at the very least, he's saying this because he thinks it will make it easier for him to win. He's a candidate who is trying to actually win. Donald Trump would love him to win, but Donald Trump is more focused on pushing the big lie as a concept to save his ego at this point. And Blake Masters has that bizarre smile on his face throughout that talk, which is partly, you can chalk it up to the fact that Blake Masters is a very, very weird person. But you know what he's thinking about Trump in that moment. That he's getting criticized over this, when I'm sure he thinks he did a good job in the debate. And he is trailing in the election, but what a weird thing for Trump to focus on when talking to this candidate.
All I heard was that this guy goes soft and Mark Kelly's been to space. That's all I'm saying. One guy is an astronaut who has gone to space and the other guy goes soft. Like that's the thing, is the idea that Donald Trump and the Republican Party and people like Blake Masters think that they're gonna be alpha dogs when they're running against someone who has been to space, who's a literal astronaut, who rides rockets that go thousands of miles an hour, crafts that go thousands of miles an hour. Like Blake Masters, he goes soft. I don't know what to do. It's a problem, and this is actually, in all seriousness, this is the way that they operate. They repeat the same insane message over and over and over and over and over again until you realize your only option is to refute it or completely change the conversation. And people try to change the conversation. There's a ton of people who are bad at politics who don't try to change the conversation. And then they always find themselves in the same conversation rebutting in nonsense. But you still have to tell people that the election, there's no evidence that the election was rigged. The election was not rigged. Any sane person will say that it was not rigged and that Trump lost because he is a loser.
Yes.
But Trump just makes you engage in this stupid conversation over and over again. And worse, as much as they say that like the left polices language, that's exactly what Trump's doing.
Yep.
He's policing Masters' language. He says you can't say anything other than exactly what I said, which was the election's rigged.
Yep.
And this same dynamic plays itself out over and over again with stuff that when they first say it, you're like, this is insane. What do you mean critical race theory? What do you mean they're going and mutilating genitals of children in the middle of their development? That's not happening, but they repeat it so much that their idiot moron friends who have absolute litmus tests for whether you can belong in their club will cudgel you if you don't say that absolutely insane stuff is true. And I don't know where we fall and what our obligation is other than to come up with something, and we have to base it in reality. I want to base it in reality, but they've got us off in crazy town. And once you're unmoored from reality, that is precisely when fascism becomes the reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, there's a reason Trump wants the only thing that makes you a Republican or not to be about whether you say that literally years ago he got robbed. Then it can be about anything. It has no tie to policy, nothing at all. It's all just about your view about a historic fact about the dear leader. Like if you don't believe that he's never bowled anything less than 300 back in the 80s, then you're not a good Republican. That's what they're setting up. Quick fact check though, because you brought up that he's a loser. He says at the end of that phone call, I've never done a rally for anyone who lost. I looked into it and you did do some rallies for yourself. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna boom roasted. We're gonna take our second break of the hour. When we come back though, COVID vaccine price hikes coming. We're gonna break it down after this.
Ice cream.
Welcome back everyone to the social break. Let's see what is going on out there. I'm worried.
Did you just hear the sigh?
I've been skimming the comments. Turkosaurus Rex says, I suspect that John won't grow his hair out because he's tired of being mistaken for Bradley Cooper. I guess that's not an insult. And maybe now I'm glad I did read it.
These days?
What was that?
Give us a...
Hey, Crockett, still partying with Cubs these days?
Oh my God, I vaguely get that reference.
I don't get it, what is that?
That is so often the way. Okay, let's see. Amaze says Ronald Reagan also came from Hollywood, but they didn't seem to mind that. Of course, no, they love it. They jump in it. They just don't have much of it. Because artistic, creative people generally don't end up being super conservative. That's just the way that it works out.
Right.
It's not up to me, it's just the way that it works out. I know that Kanye's a genius or whatever. He made a t-shirt. Anyway, VK West NYC has subscribed on Twitch. It's the 18th month and says, I'm the Iderola flavored Pop-Tart dragon, hear me roar. I'm concerned. Anyway.
What is John?
E. Cashmere says, Brett is going to Chili's after this. It pains me to say this, but Brett is really good at this.
What a weird,
It's so begrudging.
Can you just compliment me?
No, they cannot.
Just compliment me.
They can't. Let's see, Mary Duff says, Brett actually left his home at this time? Wow.
I did.
Okay, let's see, Gaseous Ogre says, Blake Master sounds like he needs Alex Jones's pills. Insta-hard.
Insta-hard, dude.
Oh God.
Jesus.
Dragon Rose of Desire says, I'll never get to see Leslie Jordan play Lindsey Graham now. Yeah, I actually wasn't familiar with Leslie Jordan. When I saw the Twitter thing happen, I read it as Leslie Jones.
Got it.
And I was like, dear God, I know Leslie Jordan is beloved. I'm not familiar with his work. Let's see, Progressive Carpenter says, like so many at TYT, Bart Kyle is the best in the business.
Thank you very much.
How does he have it ready to go?
Evidenced.
Anyway, that is demonstration right there. Okay, new members, Venomous Dragon, you're welcomed to our whole thing. Mark Kimber, you as well. Melissa Stoner, you too. All three of you, thank you for being members. Oh damn, we're down to 30 seconds, okay. Let's see, Gypsy Mama says, wow, bonus Brett. Dustin Reynolds says, big thumbs up for Anna yesterday. She did an awesome job covering. Was she covering? I think of her as the main host at this point.
She is.
I think she was just here doing everything, but she did a good job. Neurodivergent Dragon says, didn't the Good Liars offer Herschel Walker condoms? A couple decades too late, unfortunately. Anyway, with that said, lots more news to get to, everyone. Don't go anywhere. Brett and I will be right back. Welcome back, one and all, to what remains of the first hour of the Young Turks with me and him on the keyboard or whatever.
I'm so glad you didn't spill whatever that is.
Well, there's very little left in it anyway. I think that we would have been okay. Anyway, Brett, it's great to have you here. The hour has raced by.
It has.
It has. Would you like to talk about a little bit more news?
Whatever you desire.
Okay, I'm gonna be going home then. Anyway, let's talk about some news. This is actually a really important one, and you're probably not gonna hear that much about it. So let's dive into it. The COVID pandemic is very much still here. While the case counts, number of people in hospitals, number of people who've died have gone down over the past few months, it has effectively leveled off at this point and is likely to rise in the near future, which means that if you have not gotten your vaccine, if you have not gotten the most recent bivalent booster, now would be a great time to do it. Not only for your own safety, but also for your bank account, because Pfizer has announced that it's soon going to be doing a markup on the vaccine. For uninsured Americans, it's going to rise by about 10,000%. Let's give you all the information. So once the US government uses up the doses it's already bought, which we've been burning through, that's expected to happen sometime in the first few months of next year. Pfizer is gonna raise the price to as much as $130 for a single dose of the vaccine. So apparently, Angela Lukin, executive at Pfizer, said that they expect that the vaccine will be made available at no cost to people who have private insurance or government paid insurance. Lukin did not say whether the company will make any accommodations for the tens of millions of people in the US without any health insurance. I'm gonna say we could probably guess. I think, maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, the cost of producing the vaccine is estimated to be as low as $1.18 per dose. The US currently pays around $30 per dose for Pfizer's shot. So they were already making a tidy profit and they're about to raise the price substantially.
Remember Martin Shkreli?
Yes.
Do you know how much he hiked the price of his?
7 times or something?
5,000%.
Oh geez.
And remember, everyone said that Martin Shkreli was the most evil person in the world for raising the price 5,000%. This raises it 10,000%. Now, by my reading of it, we covered this in Unbossed earlier this week. Everyone watch Unbossed every weekday at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com and facebook.com/unbossedtyt. It seems like it's a $10,000 above cost asking price. 10,000% above yes. How much it costs. So they're making a 10,000% profit. And so we went through and we're like, imagine if other companies priced their products the way Pfizer is pricing.
I love it already.
So at the launch of the dollar menu, McDonald's was charging $1 for something that they made a 4% profit on. And so, a 6% profit on. And so that is the equivalent of when they launched the dollar menu, McDonald's had the $94 menu. Charging this much based on what it cost them is like McDonald's charging you $94 for a double cheeseburger. And when their executive shows up and that executive says, oh, you know what, it won't cost you anything if you have private insurance. Yeah, but they're still getting paid for private insurance.
Yeah.
It's all a scam. Your job is paying someone that much. And because of that dynamic, it costs Americans pay twice as much per person for healthcare. So twice as much as every other industrialized nation that has universal state-run healthcare. We pay twice as much for everything per person, and we die sooner.
Yep.
And it's because, and when you hear that this system is running at a place in a way where you can raise the price by 10,000%, you think, well, something's broken.
Yeah.
But the people who built the system say, it's working exactly the way we continually pay for it to work.
Well, at the very least, it is illegal for any of our politicians to invest in Pfizer or anything.
That's
they can't
not
invest
true.
in.
No, John.
No?
You're saying things that make sense to do.
Well, it shouldn't be legal. That's crazy.
Listen,
because they determine what's gonna happen. But yeah, no, of course. Look, it's absolutely insane. It's absolutely insane. And when you see that they're gonna be able to do this, the idea that there's gonna be any significant strike back against gasoline companies doing some more price gouging. Like, they're not gonna do anything about that. The gas companies at least aren't gonna raise the price of gas by 10,000%. But there's seemingly no end. There's seemingly no limit. At the same time, by the way, the WTO has stopped the proposal to temporarily waive the patents on these vaccines, which would have helped generic versions of these vaccines be made in countries throughout the world, which, by the way, have not had nearly the access to vaccines that we have as of right now. Just 23.3% of people in low-income countries have received at least one coronavirus vaccine dose. And that's not because they unfortunately trusted Tucker Carlson and decided to go without. Many people would love to get it, but just can't right now. Pfizer is doing everything it can internationally to stop that sort of proposal from going through. Now, in the past, it has been the case sometimes where these companies will say, well, sure, we are charging way more than it costs to make these medications, but we had to develop the drugs in the first place. In this case, though, we paid for that too. I understand, not 100%, but we massively subsidized the development of these vaccines. So to then turn around after already making a massive profit and decide that we need to up it by 4 or 5 times is insult to injury.
Right, so with the other ones, we said, Operation Warp Speed, here's a bunch of money, please make it. That's so taxpayers already paid for it, okay? With Pfizer, all we did was buy a bunch ahead of time. If it works, we're gonna buy a lot from you. And so they essentially did, not the first one's free, but the first one's super duper cheap. And then when you realize that Pfizer's awesome, you wanna stay alive, don't you? Then they jack up the price by 10,000% over cost.
Yeah.
It's nuts, man.
Yeah, and bear in mind, like as you said, like if you have the insurance, you're still like, it ain't free. Look at your check.
Right.
You're paying into that.
Right, someone's paying me.
Yeah.
That's the thing, it's like you just won't have to deal with the paperwork is essentially what they're saying.
You won't have to take your debit card out at CVS maybe. That's the only thing it's saving you.
And then the last thing for everybody to tell all their friends about how it works in America versus other countries, can we do this? America, we're '1 at so many things, including among developed nations, the cost of prescription medication.
Yep.
Insulin, there's an ALS medication that's $140,000 per year to have. It's ridiculous. So many things are so far above price because other countries, they allow the government to buy wholesale. The other countries say, okay, I'm Japan. You want to sell any drugs in Japan? The government's gonna buy all the drugs for everyone. So we're Costco in this, as opposed to sending someone to a boutique store. And worse, the only part of the government that is allowed to collectively bargain, negotiate for drug prices is the VA, the veterans. And recently, we wanted a bunch of Medicare to do the same, but that got brought down to 20 medications by 2029. 20 drugs, Medicare only. That is absolutely, positively insane.
And it's especially weird because there are so many right-wing populist politicians. They must not know about this, or else they surely would have stood up for their constituents and fixed it.
Trump's the only one kind of saying it.
Yeah, he was also president for a few years, and he has absolute control over his entire party. One would think that if he really prioritized it, he could probably get them to do something about it.
And just the last little bit, when they made the collectively bargaining for Medicare illegal when they created Medicare Part B. So in 2003, they just made it illegal to collectively bargain. And they said, well, we think it's a better shot if Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Aetna, they're all going and doing the negotiations themselves. But anyone who's ever been to ballpark knows that if there's like 4 places to buy a hot dog and they all decide they're gonna jack up the prices, you got only so many people offer healthcare.
Yeah.
And they all are in it together, raising the prices on us. How do I have proof of that? It costs twice as much per person in America for healthcare, and we die sooner. That is how you win every argument about whether this competition situation works versus the government collectively bargaining on your behalf.
Good point. Well, I think that we unfortunately have run out of time, but fortunately, although Brett must go, and Brett, thank you so much, not only for joining us on the show, but also joining us here at the desk. That's a novel thing. Great to have you here, thank you. Everyone check out Happy Half Hour, which won't be happening today, I'm assuming.
It'll happen today.
You're gonna do it?
The big question is whether Burbank's gonna leave her protests to be on it today. I don't know, something about racism and not wanting to drink with me.
We will see if Kevin De Leon steps down in time for Happy Half Hour. In any event, Adrian Lawrence is gonna be joining us on the other side, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm old enough that I remember when Captain Crunch put the berries in it.
Yay, crunch berries!
And I was like, ooh, the fake berries.
Remember?
We're gonna try that.
We did a story back in the day about how a woman sued, I don't know, General Mills.
She'd been eating it for 4 years, believing that it was actual berries. Yeah. She's like, these aren't real berries at all. I'm like, I got news for you. Captain Crunch isn't really a captain or a person. Joining me now, legendary whistleblower and American hero, Edward Snowden. First question is, hey, where are you?
I'm in my apartment in Moscow.
All of a sudden, in the studio, Jim Gaffigan, everybody.
Mental illness is, completely undiagnosed in our society.
It's not about a particular administration. It's about a broken system of power, and through that, really, the instrumentalization of a system of not justice, but injustice.
People understand whether they claim to deny climate change or not. Our collective house is in crisis. We're also dealing with the legacy of 40 years of economic policies that have made people's lives more precarious.
Sometimes you got to force people into their humanity. Sometimes you have to shake people into empathy.
Senator Elizabeth Warren joins us in the studio.
Healthcare is a basic human right, and we are fighting for basic human rights.
In order to actually achieve that vision of everyone having access to the same resources and getting to determine the outcome of their life, we have a lot of work to do, and it needs to start right now.
Here's something you may not know. When you deposit your money in a big bank, it doesn't just sit, safe and secure, in a vault. Instead, your money could end up building oil pipelines, mining for coal, or drilling in the Arctic. So if you're concerned about the planet, give your money something good to do. Make the move to green with Aspiration's fossil fuel-free account and join the thousands each week who are switching to save their dollars and save the planet at the same time.
Welcome to the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. This is gonna be a big one.
What Donald Trump has done as president has cut taxes for the wealthy and made life better for rich people. But he's made life worse for poor people.
We're making America great again by throwing more money at the military to destroy other countries because that makes us great instead of investing it in ourselves.
That it's Donald Trump and it's Stephen Miller. The choosing is based on wanting to create cruel and inhumane conditions to scare other people away from ever coming to the United States.
The opportunity to make money off of tragedy is the American way.
There is only one place to put garbage people: in the trash.
We've never had so much access to so much information with so little idea what the hell is going on.
What does enforcing our borders have to do with traumatizing children? Absolutely nothing.
I think a sane person could say the current situation we have right now is radical. But what we're doing is literally making the world more like hell. That's a warning sign.
ShopTYT.com now has books. One of them is Ryan Grimm's book, We've Got People. That's a saying that AOC said, they've got money, we've got people. It's the best tracing of the AOC victory I've seen anywhere. It's the most accurate, and it's got great details. The book actually goes all the way back to Jesse Jackson and how he's the original Bernie Sanders. If you want to know how we're going to win going forward, those lessons are super important, and they're in Ryan's book. So check it out right now at ShopTYT.com. We found the perfect person to lead the army, Allison Hartson.
The establishment media works hand in glove with our corporate legislators, and our corporate legislators work hand in glove with the corporation. And we're going to make it so that it's a decentralized force throughout the country so that we can quickly identify stories, quickly identify troll farms, and go in and neutralize the enemy, and then start building responsible media throughout the country and on every platform available.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second hour of the Young Turks. Adrian Lawrence joins us. Adrian, how's it going?
Hey, it's going pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm very glad that you're here, that you were able to fill in today. Thank you so much.
Glad to be here.
What do we have to talk about today?
All right, first, not the best news. In the academic circles, we know that elementary school students in the United States, well, they've fallen behind significantly, particularly in reading, and they also had the largest ever decline in math. Now, that is according to a national education assessment showing, and it basically showed that this devastating effect of COVID-19 with the pandemic on the kids in the country has very, very much impacted their educational levels. But we can't really blame it all on the pandemic. And really, when we look at the true causes of it, some things may shock you. But before we turn to the numbers, let's really talk about what this test looks like. So the National Assessment of Educational Progress, that's NAEP, also known as the nation's report card. Well, it tests thousands, hundreds of thousands of 4th and 8th graders across the nation. And this year was the first time since 2019 that the test had been given. And it's the first nationally representative study of the pandemic's impact on learning. And basically the results, they were staggering. So the nation's average math score for 4th graders fell by 5 points since 2019, from 241 to 236, out of a possible 500. 8th graders' national average math score dropped by 8 points, from 282 to 274, out of possible 500. Average reading scores for both grades fell less dramatically by 3 points. Scores in a group of large urban school districts fell by similar margins. Reading scores dropped to 1992 levels. Nearly 4 in 10 8th graders failed to grasp basic math concepts. Not a single state saw a notable improvement in their average test scores, with some simply treading water at best. Now, what's more here is that the 8th graders who were tested between January and March, well, they've now moved on to high school. So they've been ushered through the system. And this is a huge dip in score, even though it sounds like it's just marginal. No, it's significant. And this is probably also a serious wake-up call for the nation. Now, the commissioner for the National Center for Education Statistics, Peggy Carr, she offered this context to show you how grave this matter is. In NAEP, when we experience a 1 or 2 point decline, we're talking about it as a significant impact on a student's achievement. In math, we experience an 8-point decline, historic for this assessment. Now, researchers, they usually think of a 10-point gain or drop as an equivalent to roughly about a year of learning. And this makes the most recent score change even more shocking. So several major districts saw test scores fall by more than 10 points. Cleveland saw the largest drop, single drop, falling 16 points in 4th grade reading, along with a 15-point decline in 4th grade math. Baltimore and Tennessee's Shelby County also saw precipitous declines. There are children out there who do not have the basic understanding that they need for math and for reading, and yet they've been ushered along through the system. Does this give you pause and concern as much as it gives me concern, John?
I cannot tell you how much I hate it. And obviously here we're talking about 4th and 8th graders, but we know that this is gonna influence how they do in the rest of their schooling and then off into their careers. But clearly there's some concern about our math abilities too, because you'll notice in one of those first graphics you listed, they didn't just tell us what the final score was after losing 5 points, they had to actually do the subtraction for us because they didn't have faith that we'd be able to do it. Now this is devastating. I mean, losing a grade and a half of math when you're only in the 4th grade is so utterly unacceptable. And there are already a ton of issues that I can't understand why we aren't focusing on them every day, like the fact that we can go from one extreme weather event to another without talking about climate change. I've never understood that. But the fact that the country isn't grinding to a halt to deal with this, I find this to be inconceivable. I'm also a little bit worried about what would happen were we to do that, because I have a feeling that the right-wing answer to this would have just been, no, we just shouldn't have shut down at all. We should have had a couple million people die. And that's their answer, effectively. Or I don't know, they're probably gonna find a way to blame teaching 2nd graders CRT for these test scores. But for me, like to a large degree, the only thing that I want to see is the average American getting smarter, because I feel like that is the only way we're gonna get to the future that I've imagined my whole life we might be able to get to. And to see us actually going backwards, to lose literally decades of advancement, is just incredibly depressing.
Absolutely, and the thing is it almost signs that the GOP is winning, because we know they like to keep the populace very uninformed, uneducated, and just unable to be able to decipher the lies that they are spewing. And so having children not to have these core concrete elements of their knowledge that they should be able to take into their adulthood, it's going to have a significant impact, particularly also because we know that over the last few years, we've seen also a precipitous decline in the numbers of enrollments for colleges, whether it's community colleges, four-year universities, masters, everything is declining in terms of people educating themselves and informing themselves. And so if we end up with a society full of people who seem like just Twitter comments, it's going to be hell for everyone.
Yeah,
I can tell you're just as bothered as I am.
Look, it's obviously complex. It's and one important thing that you've already mentioned, but that I want to make sure that people really focus on coming out of this, is that yes, things were bad during the pandemic, and it's not entirely just because of the pandemic, but yes, things have been especially bad. But test scores were bad before the pandemic. We already were failing our kids. We were in effectively every way that you can, failing ourselves, failing our future. And it is a problem of closures, I guess. It's a problem of funding, but it's also a problem of a culture that has never actually given a damn about learning, about science, about expertise, about creativity and imagination and all of these things. Like, we just as a culture have always been at least suspicious of education, of the prospect of learning something new, experiencing something new. Often we go way beyond that, and we're downright hostile, not just to the idea of it, but to the individuals. We hate academia, we hate teachers, now we even hate doctors as a culture. And so, look, the kids, I'm sure that some of them want to learn, and some of them will be told that they need to learn at least a little bit to be able to get a job. That's often the only way that education is talked about, is as a means to an end of some career, not as a means on its own. But just like, why would they care about this when the only time they hear about schools from their parents is, like by teachers trying to groom their kids or something? Like, the entire well has been poisoned, and I don't know how we bounce back from this.
No, and I think you are absolutely right. I don't think we really have the incentive, given our legacy of not prioritizing education. And as we know, knowledge is power, and they do not want a populace that is powerful. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about how we got here to the extent that we know. So basically, believe it or not, the decline in scores, it's not necessarily a product of any kind of partisan politics. Really, this failure here is bipartisan. This per Politico. Declines afflicted states and major cities, whether they were led by Republicans who pushed to quickly reopen schools amid the pandemic, or Democrats who urged a more cautious return to normal classes. That tells us a lot in terms of what's going on in the approach here. And also, this isn't necessarily a product of the pandemic itself. Now, the declines, they're only partially attributable to this push to really shutter schools and move online, where there were possible COVID-19 surges. Now, Commissioner Carr explained, there's nothing in this data that tells us that there is a measurable difference in the performance between states and districts based solely on how long schools were closed. And let's not forget that remote learning looks very differently all across the United States. The quality, all of the factors that were associated with implementing remote learning, it is extremely complex. The commissioner also said that more analysis is needed to understand the role that the pandemic played in the declines, along with other factors such as teacher shortages and also bullying. And Beverly Perdue, who is the chair of the National Assessment Governing Board, said this. This is not the result simply of a horrible 3 years for students. This is a result of a realized generational decline. If people get this data, look at it and think it's all because of the pandemic, then that could very well be a nearly fatal mistake for decision making. Absolutely. Now, scores declined across the board, regardless of race, economics, and other demographics. However, it's really important to note, as we often see, that when there is some kind of loss in society, it is felt hardest by the most marginalized of racial groups. So blacks and Hispanics, well, the students, their scores suffered the most. This per US News. Black and Hispanic students tended to incur steeper declines, particularly in 4th grade math, where they experienced a 7-point drop compared to white students, whose scores dropped by an average of 3 points. And while their declines weren't significantly different from white students and other graded subject combinations, they started from lower levels of academic achievement, meaning many more fell into the basic or below basic level of understanding than did their white peers. And lastly, with students from low income households and also students with disabilities, they also suffered considerably, in part because they were kept out of school longer, or also they didn't have the special needs accommodations and educators that they needed. We do know that urban school districts, which generally remained in remote learning the longest due to a combination of factors, including community transmission and the increased vulnerability of their communities, posted some of the biggest declines in math scores, but showed less of a downward trajectory in reading scores. It just really shows you that across the board that there are problems. And this is also very indicative of something John had mentioned in terms of generational issues when it comes to the fact that the US hasn't really ever pushed hard for education and invested in the knowledge of its people. John?
Yeah, 100%. And look, looking forward, you have to imagine, so the kids who are behind as 4th graders or behind as 8th graders, they're still gonna have to proceed through school. They're gonna try to get into high schools. They're gonna try to get into colleges or whatever. And some people are going to have the resources to do private tutors and SAT prep classes, or they're gonna be able to fall back on legacy or connections or things like that. So like all of this is about the actual education, what people are really learning, but then there's also the other factors that will allow some to bounce back more easily than this. And while we focused, I think rightly so, on the racial breakdown in this, there's also obviously a massive class distinction in there too. You know, remote learning looks very different when your family has a lot of resources than when both of your parents are working multiple jobs. And so this is just like the perfect case study of the intersection of all of the sources, the main sources of inequality, all working together to potentially set back an entire generation.
Absolutely. And the thing is as much as so much of this is unfortunate in terms of the truth and very negative, there's some positive news out there. Education experts, well, they're saying that math scores are most responsive to teaching and classroom learning. So hopefully that's a way we can get those scores up by having educators in the class educate when it comes to math. But then when it comes to reading scores, that they're basically boosted in the home, outside of a school environment where hopefully family members and loved ones can help children with reading, because I damn sure can't help them with math. That's not for me. But we also do know that the Secretary of Education, Miguel Cardona, he's pushing big right now in terms of the work to ensure that schools know that they can leverage the $123 billion in funding that was part of the COVID relief package that was passed in 2021. This can go towards tutoring, curriculum upgrades, and all sorts of things. And they're also going to be issuing some recommendations, curriculum and guidance in the ways in which schools and educators can leverage this money. So there seems to be a lot of opportunities out there to hopefully uplift and get these scores up. But at the same time, again, a lot of these kids already been moved through the system. They're already in high school now, and they'll probably continue to be passed on even though they don't have the skills. Yeah. And then they won't even be able to necessarily be contributing members of society because they won't have the basic knowledge that they need in order to truly thrive. Any thoughts, John?
That is certainly the fear.
Yep, doesn't seem like it's very good right now, but hopefully the United States will get it together. In the meantime, we'll go to break. We'll see you soon.
Ice cream.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's see what's going on out there. Billy Shea Taylor had said, I think this is when Brett was here, who the hell is this guy? He's gone now, don't worry. It's just me and Adrian, you're good. Let's see, Jan had said the boys are back in town. See, I need to get to these a little bit quicker, I'm missing them. But let's see, Valiant Orion says no ice cream Wednesday, but we got Super Trash Boys Friday today. Ice cream. Trash Boys Friday?
Wow.
Bart, you're gonna have to make a song for that one. What's that, Adrian?
Not hot boys, trash boys. That's great.
Parker says in a super chat, brace yourselves for election night in 13 days. As of now, it looks likely that Dems will lose in Pennsylvania and Georgia, which means they'd lose the Senate. I don't know. Warnock is still up by like 4 or 5 points over Walker, and the new scandal probably won't hurt Walker too much, but I don't think it'll help him. When it comes to Fetterman, we'll have to see. I don't know. Planning for disaster is probably a generally safe way to live your life from here on out. But anyway, Stone Canuck says, hate that Walker gets attention for this hypocrisy scandal. He doesn't deserve attention at all, ideally. But when the big scandals come out, you sort of have to engage with them. Venomous Dragon says, vote for the sake of humanity. Vote 100% in many parts of the country. You can vote right now. There's no need to wait until the last day. There's no need to wait in line for a really long time. Go vote right now or vote by mail if it's possible. Okay. Early Bird says, is Doc John's new gym partner? He's looking jacked in the promo. Well, I gotta take a look at this promo. Has Dr. Rashad Ritchie been lifting in the offseason? How would he have time? He hosts like 9 hours of content a day. Anyway, let's see. Matt Guyver says, yeah, that Fetterman sure was looking great last night, especially when the Macintosh wheel kept spinning above his head over and over again. Look, it's difficult. I honestly, when I say I can't imagine what it's like, it's because I don't even have a basis for the imagination. And yet he still did it. Most politicians, not just many, most would have never gone up and actually done a debate, but he actually cares. It might have ended up being a strategic misstep, but I have to give it to him for the transparency and for the bravery to actually be willing to try. Anyway, Todd Chisholm says, damn it, Brett, I want McDonald's now in a super chat. I get it, I could probably go for that as well. But first though, more news. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, everybody. Adrian, what have we got up next?
All right, let's go ahead and get it.
You talk about the women's rights. Okay, you're blaming us all on the women. My body is my body, and I don't want the government telling me what I can do with my body.
Ma'am, are you having children anytime soon? That's my question. I'm asking a legitimate question.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was confronted with a question on abortion. Basically, she had all sorts of nonsense to say, but nothing that I would say is meritorious at all. Now, there's more to this exchange, right? There's more for us? Let's go ahead and get it.
You're right, it's your body, but a baby inside a woman's womb is another person's body, not your body and not my body. And that abortion is murder of another human being, whether that body is inside your uterus or not, but that is murder. I do not support the murder of another human being. I support life, and I will always stand up to fight for the lives of the unborn and life overall. But I don't think you're having children anytime soon. So I appreciate your interest in women's rights, but killing an unborn baby is not a woman's right, and that's not health care.
Woo! Whew, that was an incredibly disgusting exchange from Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course. Talking to her constituents in such a way that would really suggest that she does not respect them at all. Yeah, this is part of an exchange that she had when she was on a show called Night Talk. That's a politics and news radio program that's hosted by UCTV, a privately owned cable access station in North Georgia. And of course, Marjorie Taylor Greene had to get this in as it concerns any potential exceptions for rape and incest.
A child abuser and a rapist should be put to death if they are doing that to a 10-year-old child. Number one, I think that should be our focus. That is a very rare occasion. So that should not be the entire premise of the argument on abortion. Again, ma'am, I know you say it's your body, your choice, but I don't think you're having any children anytime soon. I think we need to focus on the future of America, and that's our children, because they are our future. And the unborn, they're our future also.
Disgusting. Now we're going to dive into Greene's abrupt exit later in terms of the show. But first, let's talk about her position and her argument here. So Greene's no exceptions argument, it's even more oppressive than Georgia's current law right now, which is a 6-week abortion ban. And under the current law, there are exceptions for rape and incest. Unfortunately, you have to file a police report in order to qualify, but still it's there. And the law also allows for later abortions when the mother's life is at risk or there's a serious medical condition that renders a fetus unviable. Yet it seems that if Greene were Queen of Georgia, she would greenlight unwanted children, incest babies, and handmaids. This should really be terrifying for her constituents. John?
Yeah, every part of that was as disgusting as politics can be. On the policy, on the ideology, and on the actual way that she was communicating with her constituents. And she's also lying. She says she doesn't support murdering people. Yes, she went on to say that she supports murdering people in some cases. The child rapist, she believes you should murder that person. You shouldn't be allowed to murder the fetus. Now, if the fetus grows up to commit any number of a long list of crimes that she thinks the state should be able to murder that fetus for, then you can murder them, but not along the way. She also supports vigilantes killing people in the streets. I mean, she supports people murdering each other in a lot of different contexts. I don't recall a lot of filibusters from her on stopping funding for drone strikes and things. She's perfectly fine with the government putting all sorts of different people inside and outside of the US to death. So that's a complete evasion. The fact that she then goes on to say, I appreciate your interest in women's rights, might be among the most condescending things that I've ever heard. First of all, this isn't an issue that only affects women, but even to the extent that she is going to naturally limit it to just women, you are talking to a woman who she has made the calculation, Marjorie Greene has, is too old to have any say. She doesn't get to opine on this. And so that begs the obvious follow-up, Marge, when are you now not going to be able to opine on what happens on any of this? I mean, you're not 20. Maybe you're not as old as the caller. I don't know, maybe the caller is 20 years older than you. At what exact age did that caller lose the right to have an opinion on what happens to her bodies or the bodies of people that she loves and cares about? Because you might be 3 years, 5 years, 11 years away from losing that right as well. Women's rights are mighty contingent these days. And then, of course, to just continually talk about her age in that way. I know that we're supposed to be better, Adrian, than people like Marjorie Greene. We're certainly not supposed to refer to people as trash, but my God, does she make it difficult. She is just as trashy as a person gets. She is every stereotype of an ugly American. Ugly in every sense, in terms of values and ideology is what I mean. She is just a really trashy person.
Absolutely ugly and ignorant as hell. Like the thought that just because whether someone is childbearing or not, or whether they've been through menopause, it is something that dictates whether they can have a say in it, then it's like, oh, okay, well, if this woman who may sound older based on the sound of her voice, if you're saying that she can no longer bear children so she can't have a say, so why are all these dudes out here who don't have uteruses making any kind of comments about women's bodies? Get the hell out of here. Marjorie Taylor Greene is just ignorance personified. And the thing is, she can't even back up her arguments in any legit way, which is why she bounced so quickly from this interview. Because that call, it was one of several that she faced that forced her to address her position on abortion. And it happens to be a very polarizing issue, as we know, with the midterms. It also appears that Green definitely didn't have the stomach for it to stick around. We know this per The Independent. As the questions began coming in from callers, Miss Green was suddenly gone following a commercial break. A spokesperson for the Congresswoman told Newsweek that Green was only scheduled to be on the show for an hour. Now, it does not appear that Green was there for an entire hour, however, but when they returned from break, well, the hosts shared their reactions. They said this. Well, we are back without Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's gone, co-host Judy O'Neill said when the show returned without the Congresswoman. We'll take your calls and comments and whatever you have to say, but she left. She said she'd enjoyed my show and she's through. And she got up and left, the co-host added. So she's out of here. Nothing I can do about that. Well, it was a blessing to have her absence because I've been waiting for her absence for quite some time and I haven't gotten it yet. But the thing that seems to be very important that she needs to actually focus on is abortion. Again, being a driving issue in Georgia right now, where as mentioned, the state has a 6-week abortion ban in effect. And to note, on Monday, a state court judge there in Georgia heard testimony in a case that's challenging whether the ban violates Georgians' constitutional right to privacy and liberty. But that judge specifically said that he's not going to rule on the matter before November 8th. Now, it would be great if he actually did rule on it before the midterms so we could get more bombastic takes from Marjorie Taylor Greene. But basically, speaking of the midterms, Greene is facing Democrat Marcus Flowers, and one of Flowers' advisors, Fred Wellman, well, he tweeted this insight on why he thought Greene left the show so abruptly. Marjorie Taylor Greene appeared on local cable access tonight in Fort Oglethorpe, GA. Flowers bought all the ads on either side of each segment and a few callers blasted her. This is the chef's kiss finale. It is definitely something. But again, it achieved Marjorie Taylor Greene's absence. I'll do whatever that will take. John?
Yeah, no, it's utter weakness. Not to leave, by the way. You're allowed to leave if you don't like the show. I mean, to leave in this situation just because you didn't like the questions an older woman was asking you or an ad or something, that's pretty pathetic. But you can go. You just can't then say, well, I didn't flee, I was only there for an hour. It's not up to you. Like, the host clearly thinks that you left early. Like, you could have said, you could have stormed out and then put out a statement, you know what, I've got more important things to do for my constituents than to waste my time with a bunch of empty-headed ideologues or something. You could have said that. It's the weakness of pretending that you didn't flee when it's abundantly clear to everyone who is watching the show or hosting the show that that's what you did. That's what's pathetic about it. But look, she's always gonna make missteps like this. She's not a bright person. She's not a sharp or a fast person. She goes in there thinking it's gonna work out. She can't formulate quick responses to the questions or comments that she faces. And then she leaves without thinking about the consequences of it.
No, sounds right. She fled like Josh Hawley on January 6th. And definitely not very bright, not very smart. Speaking of those people, well, we have more for you in terms of a story on someone who is not very bright or very smart either. Check this out.
You're a disgrace. You go to remember when Trump called your wife ugly? Remember that? Remember when Trump called your wife ugly and then you nominated him? Remember when those insurrectionists wanted to murder you? No, go blow Trump. Get out of New York. Trump called your wife ugly and you loved it.
The Big Apple forever brings me big joy. Yeah, so as you probably heard and have seen by now, Ted Cruz enjoyed that warm welcome, I'm sure, in New York during his book tour. But instead of focusing on the hecklers, well, the married senator from Texas was apparently preoccupied with something else.
So in the seat behind me, there is this gorgeous woman in a halter top that
everybody saw it was trending on social media.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was like I was laughing because I was watching the game at home. Yeah. My phone's blowing up. They're like, "Are you at the game? Are you at the game?" I'm like, "No, I'm a commoner. I'm back at home. I'm watching this on TV." And then everybody's tweeting me or texting me going, "Who is that sitting behind him?" Because it was like if you had to focus on the game and make sure no one took a picture that they're like, "Oh, look, Ted Cruz."
So I will say, my buddy Jeff leaning next to me, he sort of leans over and tells me, "Okay, she's behind you. She's selling an NFT." So she had some sign and she's selling it. And she has, to use the Monty Python phrase, she has great tracts of land. So he tells me this and I'm like, okay. All we need is one video of me turning around and my eyes shifting down. Like they're 24 frames in a second.
Yep, that's all you need.
For 1/24 of a second, I look down and that's an image they go with.
Yeah.
And I have to admit the whole damn game, I'm looking forward. Or if I turn around, my eyes are up, damn it. You are not.
You're looking in the upper deck.
So that was, and she was actually very nice. She and I took a selfie. We were one of the many people that took a selfie early on. It was before she was wearing a jacket or something because it was
when she looked normal. There you go.
She was just
before she was trying to sell
sort of the fan behind me until she wasn't.
Ugh, ogling creep. Well, if you remember Cruz, he's been married to his wife Heidi for some 22 years, and I heard she's pretty much a baller at the bank. So why he's out here talking about some woman's knockers is beyond me. But it's kind of hard to tell if he's actually happily married or if he's really in this marriage. Who knows? Because this isn't the first time. We also know that the heckler, what they brought up in terms of Trump calling his wife ugly. Now, if you recall, during the 2016 presidential campaign, after Melania Trump was slut-shamed in a Facebook ad that Cruz was not involved in, Trump said he'd spill the beans about Cruz's wife, Heidi. Now, Trump later retweeted someone who wrote, "No need to spill the beans. The images are worth 1,000 words," with an unfortunate photo of Heidi, whose face was captured in a strained expression alongside a glamour shot of Melania. Now, of course, instead of standing up for his wife, Cruz went ahead and endorsed Trump for president. That's cute. And even today, Cruz is still really brushing off this insulting slight to the mother of his children.
I frankly don't know how you get over your wife being called ugly. I don't know how you get over those kind of calumnies against your father. But you obviously have gotten over it. Today, you sing a very different tune. So tell us, were you lying then or are you lying now?
Yeah, that's a loaded question there. Look,
I think a lot of people have the same question. It's a very different Ted Cruz that we're seeing. We are. I mean, would you not agree that that's very different Ted Cruz than today's Ted Cruz?
What I would say is this. In 2016, we had a primary where Donald Trump and I beat the living crap out of each other. I'll tell you, Heidi laughed when he said that. My father laughed. By the way, my dad didn't just kill Kennedy. He's got Jimmy Hoffa buried in the backyard. It was idiotic. And we went after each other, and at the end of the day, he won. And I had a decision to make in November of 2016. He'd been elected president. I got a responsibility to represent 30 million Texans. I could have decided my feelings are hurt. I'm going to take the ball and go home and not do my job. But if I was prepared to do that, I better be prepared to resign from my job because I have a responsibility. And why did I choose to work with him, even though I was pissed off at what he said? Because I had a job to do and I had a responsibility.
That man does not respect his wife. Let's stop with that. Anyways, this isn't the first time that The View has called out Cruz because earlier this year, the daytime talk show hosts, they took issue with creepy comments that the senator made about actor Kate Beckinsale during one of his podcast tapings. Here's a recap. He said Pete Davidson was dating Kate Beckinsale. You're talking underworld. You're talking like super hot vampire in black leather trench coat. And you're like, really? The SNL dude, like, wow. Whoopi Goldberg, she noted that she felt the segment was disrespectful to Cruz's wife, Heidi. Fellow View co-host Ana Navarro also weighed in, declaring Cruz's words gave her the heebie-jeebies. Ana Navarro said, "Can I just tell you, it is so creepy and so disgusting, and I agree with you. How disrespectful can this be to his wife?" Yeah, let's just admit it, that Ted Cruz is very disturbing, quite disgusting, and a really crummy husband. Let's be real here. Who talks about other women like that and publicly, and to do so in such an unabashed way? Like, he doesn't care. It tells you that this is who this person is, and it is a reflection of his marriage. John.
Yeah, I don't think that he was thinking at all about how it reflected on his marriage. I think that he is a guy who clearly has always wanted to be cool, and he's just not remotely near there. So when he goes on these podcasts, a guy starts talking to him and he wants to have like guy talk, and he doesn't get that he's Ted Cruz. And when people see him, they see Ted Cruz, and everyone knows who Ted Cruz is. Ted Cruz most of all, but he occasionally forgets it when he's talking on a podcast. That's why he hangs out with like younger conservatives and stuff. He just wants to seem like he's not a creepy older man, which is unfortunately what he is. When it comes to his answer on The View, it was a great question, by the way. I loved his self-serving, ridiculous answer. Then first of all, in his telling of it, once Trump was elected president, I had a decision to make. Wait, hold up. You were campaigning for him. You didn't make the decision after the inauguration. You did the little phone call. Can you give some money to Trump for president? You had made that decision months and months before. He was almost honest when he said, if I was gonna do my job, I might as well say goodbye to my job if I didn't support him, because that is true. Not that he couldn't do his job without supporting Trump. There are senators who don't like Trump. Mitch McConnell seems to despise Donald Trump. No, but he would likely have been replaced in the next election by some other Texas Republican who was willing to kiss Trump's ass more than Ted Cruz was. That's the truth of it. And then the most ridiculous rewriting of history that maybe I've ever seen, Edwin laughed when he said this. When he said, we just finished a primary where we'd beaten the hell out of each other. Oh, there was a beating, but it wasn't two men beating the hell out of each other. You got hit and made fun of. Your wife got hit and made fun of. That's the only direction that the beating was coming in. And I don't know what the conversations in his household was. I don't know if his dad laughed over the JFK stuff. I don't know if his wife laughed over her being called ugly. I can't imagine. I think that if anything, she was laughing at him maybe. I think that every time she sees him, she probably sees him differently than she did before that campaign. I don't think that you ever regain respect in your wife's eyes after that performance, but that's for their marriage, and relationships come in a lot of different forms, and humiliation is a kink that a lot of people are into. So I'm not gonna judge their relationship, Adrian.
Oh, well, I'll kink shame the hell out of it. Like, this is pathetic. That's absolutely disgusting to let someone talk about your partner, your life partner, the mother of your children like that, but then also to ogle the woman at the game. Like, get out of here. They are breasts. 50% of us have them. Actually, 100% of us have them. But it's like, get out of here with that mess. And it's also very disgusting and disturbing as an individual that you are a US senator and you're out here reflecting on a D cup. Like, give me a break. This man is so far from being anyone respectable or even desirable. He is not admirable. He is just complete and utter T-word trash. And that's how I feel about that. Any last thoughts, John?
It's pretty clear to me. Yeah, you're disgusting. Look, I don't think there's a senator who I want to hear talk about Iraq he saw, but it definitely ain't Ted Cruz. I don't know who the market is for that. Like, granted, I don't like Ted Cruz, but let's say I like Bernie. Don't want to hear Bernie talk about Iraq. Not interested in what he thinks about an ass. I don't want to hear that. I don't know why on the right it might be different. I can't say it. I don't listen to those podcasts, but the whole thing is just gross, and I would love to never have to hear anything like that again.
Yep, and the funny thing is, Ted Cruz would be the first one to say, I have daughters. Just pathetic. All right, we will have more for you when we get back. See you soon.
Ted Cruz sucks.
God bless you.
Shut up, boo.
Ice cream.
Okay, everybody, let's see what's going on out there. Hold on. There was a lot of talk about McDonald's and cheeseburgers after what Brett said. I want to be very clear. We're not sponsored by McDonald's, just to be transparent about that. Anyway, Joseph says in a super chat, he turned around, worked with Trump because his corporate donors told him to. He does what he's told by his donors. He's married to them, not Heidi. I kind of disagree. I think that 99% of the time, yes, he does work for his donors, but he's also a very self-interested politician. I think he didn't want to be Liz Cheney. I think it was as simple as that. I think that he went up against Trump. He's one of the few who actually tried to defy Trump. And he knew that unless he groveled sufficiently, that was it for him. And his plan for like 6 years now has been, I'm gonna keep my head down and they're gonna laugh at me, but someday I'm still gonna be president. I think it's a ridiculous plan. I don't think it's gonna work, but that's clearly the way that he sees it. Anyway, let's see. Snack Panther says $94 double cheeseburgers. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba, I'm loving it. I bet they would love charging that much. Thankfully, it is not the case because I quite like those. Let's see, Thomas says, watching her makes me tense. I think that's Marjorie Greene. I believe she's really that dense. Marjorie Greene is not very keen on using any kind of sense. I realized only halfway through that was a poem, but thank you for that, I do like it. Okay, Emmett says, even today, children with physical disabilities are forced into special ed classes because instead of incorporating an inclusive class, we shun them. Yes, add that to a long list of issues with the way that our education system is set up. TikTok Drama says in the comments, love to see Adrian in my afternoon. I was very glad to see Adrian too, because I did not want to have to do this hour by myself. It'd be an absolute disaster, and she's knocking it out of the park. A park full of people mocking Ted Cruz, by the way, in this metaphor. Anyway, No Seum says Fetterman still had better answers than Oz did. That's true. Yeah, if you care about substance, he was still better. I just wonder how many people do at this point. Brett Wells says if Fetterman was a Republican, he would have been praised for debating and gaining votes just as Reagan did after being shot, and as Herschel would have gained by just being coherent till he whipped out the badge. Exactly. Lee Murphy says it seems that the GOP chose bad celebrity candidates and then just doubled down on that support when those bad candidates do or say stupid things. It does seem like that, and thank you for your 36 months as a member of TYT. You get access, by the way, if you're a member of our YouTube channel, to members content as well as emojis, the badges, and all of that. Snack Panther says, gee, if only we passed universal pre-K, thanks Manchin, you worm. That certainly wouldn't hurt with these test scores going forward. Okay, a little bit more news to close out the second hour. We'll see you in a sec. I don't know about you, Adrian, but it's the point of the day where I'm getting hungry. Can we just talk about food instead of politics, please?
Kind of, but no. Well, actually, I think we could. Yeah, I think we can do that.
Okay, good.
I mean, what's the big deal? I'm sorry about that. What is the big deal? Could this be? We all know that Joe is having problems, right? He is. Could it be the ice cream fascination, fixation has something to do with his brain? I'm not kidding here. There's all kinds of research out there from the scientific community that says ice cream can have a minimizing effect on Alzheimer's disease or dementia.
If that were the case, I'd be long gone. But anyways, these fools out here come up with everything other than having an MD. But of course, with this thought of Joe Biden liking ice cream as being this clear sign of dementia, it really makes you wonder about Donald Trump, their little beloved god, given his diet. I wonder really what it says about him. Well, here's a breakdown of the former president's feedings, shall we say. So skip breakfast. But if he has to have it, then it'd be bacon and eggs. Lunch again is optional, though meatloaf sandwiches are a preference. In a book written by former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski called Let Trump be Trump. The author writes, the president would usually go 14 to 16 hours without eating. Dinner is where the fast food magic happens. And according to the same book, would be a full McDonald's dinner of 2 Big Macs, 2 Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, and a small chocolate shake, a total of 2,430 calories. Now, the translation on that would be that according to Harvard Medical School's health publishing team, there are 5 foods that are linked to better brain power. Now, none of them really feature Trump's culinary oeuvre. They suggest fatty fish, walnuts, tea, and coffee, which Trump never has, berries, and the key missing items, green leafy vegetables. Yeah, sounds like Trump's diet is kind of maybe messing with his brain a little bit. What do you think, John?
I think I'm glad that we have that breakdown. Now we understood, we have the origin story for the massive dumps. We know where they're coming from now. By the way, look, obviously I hate Donald Trump as much as anyone can hate anything. But I do have to say his dinner order, well, it's a little bit much for me. It sounds pretty good. I do like Filet-O-Fish. 2 Big Macs is a bit too much, but he is reasonable. It's a small chocolate shake. McDonald's might be the only thing that me and him have in common, I think at this point. I do appreciate a good eggy breakfast, I guess. And so, I don't know, he can eat whatever he wants. Honestly, if it were up to me, he'd be downing 10 or 20 Filets-O-Fish at a time so that we could wrap this whole thing up a little bit earlier. But anyway, when it comes to the Biden thing, isn't it amazing? Like Newsmax has hosts and they're like a news network, so they have to fill like a bunch of hours, but they can't talk about anything real, anything that's really happening. Like they're not gonna tell you about the flooding in Nigeria. They're not gonna talk about the opioid crisis or income inequality. Like these are real problems that they don't want fixed, so they can't cover them. They want to distract you from them. So they just have to come up with stuff to talk about. So you have a room full of producers who are like, okay, what can we talk about that's sufficiently ridiculous? I think Biden eats ice cream too much. Let's see if we can link that to his brain rotting or something. This is really what their viewers are being fed. Not ice cream, but just complete distractions and misinformation. There are issues with Biden. His ice cream habit ain't a part of it.
No, not at all. And we're not going to look past as quickly your dietary habits, how you sanctioned this McDonald's McNasty. Both me and your arteries are just screaming inside right now. My God, I'll just leave it there.
I will say, I had a bit of Jack in the Box earlier today. It wasn't quite an order to match Donald Trump's, but I do appreciate Jack in the Box. It's pretty good. No?
You know what? No, there's not enough prayer in the world, but just continue. But as we go on in terms of discussing Trump's diet, we also have to bear in mind that there is that love for carbonated high fructose corn syrup. Yeah, so according to the New York Times, Trump drinks at least a dozen Diet Cokes every day. It's no secret that Americans in general have a problem with sugary beverages, but a dozen sodas a day, even the diet variety, is just a bit over the top. Dr. Darush Muzaffaran, the dean of the Friedman School of Nutrition, Science and Policy at Tufts University, told Times that just the caffeine from all the soda is enough to cause him problems like high heart rate, insomnia, and migraines, not to mention other health issues related to diet soda like weight gain, increased risk for type 2 diabetes, and increased risk of stroke. And lastly, but well, even though Trump's dining habits, when it comes to things he can easily access, are very disgusting, well, as you can imagine, his dining habits at elegant restaurants are also really not indicative of a refined or healthy palate. The 45th president of the United States enjoys his steaks burnt to a crisp. Trump's late butler, that's Anthony Senecal, well, he revealed that Trump's steaks would be so well done that they'd rock on the plate. Some studies have suggested that consuming overcooked meat can lead to memory problems in later life and put you at a higher risk of prostate cancer and also get you shamed on Black Twitter. An article by the claims that doctors have in the past resorted to sneaking the president vegetables in order to get him to consume some fresh produce. We were working on his diet, Trump's former physician Ronnie Jackson reportedly told the New York Times in 2018. We were making the ice cream less accessible. We were putting cauliflower in the mashed potatoes. Okay, I don't necessarily want anyone in a leadership position where you have to sneak vegetables, where you have to spell out CARROTS so they don't know what you're talking about. Like, this is not reflective of a leader. I should not have to treat you like a toddler, yet he fully reflects all indicia of a toddler. This right-wing media push to condemn Joe Biden because the man likes him some ice cream, especially when you have Trump sitting over here eating the worst things in the world and having just a crappy diet. It's all shenanigans and nonsense.
Yeah, and you know that we're going to defend Joe Biden since we're filming this on Ice Cream Wednesdays. But yeah, the thing that Ronnie Jackson said about him, about the sneaking cauliflower in his mashed potatoes, is so humiliating. So like I get that, like my wife ideally would like that I eat a little bit healthier than I do. And so we have those talks and she encourages in terms of snacks and stuff. But like for your doctor to publicly reveal that they have to engage in like espionage to get you to eat cauliflower, like that's the limit. Maybe they can get you to cauliflower. God, he is such a child, such a base, primitive thing in terms of his thinking. It's always shocked me so much that coming out of his loss in 2020, this guy who wants to be the figurehead of a right-wing party that is absolutely obsessed with masculinity and being an alpha and health and virility and all that, being a strong man, that like after he lost, he didn't do anything in the offseason to fulfill that none of them really do. None of their figureheads do literally anything to even appear to nod at the supposed definition of manhood and health that they say that they have. It is so weird. Like, why is it that a professional wrestler or something hasn't run as a Republican senator at this point? Like, they say that they worship this stuff, but they don't actually support any people in politics or media who really can back up any of this. Again, the American diet in general is messed up, and I'm including myself. It's difficult, we're not taught much about nutrition growing up, and also it is more expensive to eat healthy, and it's really tough for a lot of people. So I'm not like gonna totally get down on Trump for eating McDonald's. McDonald's is incredibly tasty and very popular. But it also feels like it could be a thing where maybe he could do some good talking about his own struggles to eat a healthier diet. I know that past presidents have done that, but that would be like a showing of vulnerability that obviously we can never expect from Donald Trump.
Oh God, of course not. No, not at all. If anything, he thinks of himself as this deity, this majestic creature and being. And I would almost say so that it must be something going on here, because how is he putting all of this disgusting formaldehyde type food in his system and yet he's not been mummified? I just feel bad for Melania and anybody who shares a bathroom with this man. It's just disgusting. Like, your system can't handle that. Those blocks of Big Macs, the fillet of fish. Get out of here. Your body doesn't recognize any of that stuff. I don't even recognize it. Like, it's something that just kind of drives me mad, this thought that these people who treat their bodies absolutely terrible, and yet they seem to still persist with that issue. It's just weird. But then also on top of that, imagine having all the money that you could want, because you largely steal from people. But you have all the money that you could want, and all you gotta do is hire, and you have a chef, and they can make anything you want, and yet you're getting fast food and drive-through. I don't see it. I don't understand it. John, any parting words?
I had no idea going into this show that you despised fast food quite this much. I feel seen in a negative way. I feel bad about the stuff that I've eaten recently. Those dollar tacos at Jack in the Box, you should try one. It's pretty good stuff. Have you ever spent 28 bucks at a Taco Bell? You know Trump has. Anyway.
Oh my God, that poor porcelain throne. Oh my God, what
What?
I know what you're thinking. How do you actually pass something like that in his golden toilet? You have to hit the latch 1, 2, 3 to finally get it down. And the water's just building up. Big water, toilet water, huge.
Beautiful
anyway,
water, though.
Exactly. That's unfortunately all the time we have to talk about Trump's bathroom habits, but there's much more to come in the bonus episode, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
I think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing.